Thanks for joining today as we talk about creating spending plans. I'm Michelle Cooner. I'm the president of Personal Money Planning. I'm also a CHFC, FPQP, CRPC, CCC, and ACFHC. All that means is that we can probably talk to you about anything money related. So today we're going to jump in and talk about creating a spending plan. Now, although budgeting is the foundation to any advanced financial issue, it's often looked at as like basic or fundamental. Most people may feel that, we pay our bills on time, so we really don't need a budget. However, most wealth is lost through poor cash flow management. And oftentimes, these small ongoing losses are hard to notice. They're very easy to overlook. And let's think of this as the boiling frog fable. If you put a frog into a pot of boiling water, it's going to shock him. He's going to jump out. However, if you put that frog into a pot of lukewarm water, it's going to be pretty chill. Like I could be sitting in this pot of water. I'd probably be sitting in a pond full of water. It's not really a big deal. And then you can gradually and incrementally increase the temperature on that water, and he's not going to notice it. And that's often what happens with our finances. We have these small leaks, these very small ongoing leaks that we don't necessarily notice. We'll notice the big ones. If we have to pay a deductible on something, if we have, an appliance in the house that goes out, and we have these big things that happen, we'll notice those. But it's the small things that often have more of an impact than we realize. It's important that we kind of take a step back and stop doing what really hasn't been working, and just separate ourselves from that financial twistedness of misinformation. And what I mean by that is oftentimes we're trying to, take a tool that's available, a certain program, a certain idea, and we're trying to fit, or even a set of guidelines. You should be spending this percentage or that percentage of your income on food, clothing, shelter, entertainment, whereas it's not customizable to us. So what we're actually trying to do is fit our personal lives and our personal spending into this computer algorithm that isn't personal. And that's why we see that these things don't necessarily work all the time. They may work for some, and they may work for some things, but it's not the fix-all for everyone or everything. Oftentimes they don't work because they're not really reasonable. You may have in your plan, all of your expenses, income and expenses listed, and you're really going to be gung-ho to pay off this debt. And we're like, okay, where's your food? Oh, I can get by on $20 a month food. Not a big deal. So it's not reasonable. You have to give that wiggle room. And it may be reasonable for, maybe it can be sustainable for a very short period of time, but we're looking at something that you want to create that's going to last long term, because let's face it, you're going to be dealing with money for the rest of your life. Oftentimes these kind of plug and chug programs aren't easy to follow. It's not the right tool. It doesn't include the items you need to track. So what ends up happening is you end up trying to fit your stuff into someone else's design. You're trying to, kind of hammer in a square peg into a round hole. It would be much easier if it was tailored to your personal situation. These programs often focus on maybe reducing spending by paying off debt, or it's not really the most efficient or effective way to use the spending plan. For instance, you may have a program set up that says, okay, this is how much extra, income you have at the end of the month. Let's tackle this debt. Whereas maybe it should focus first on creating an emergency fund, then tackling debt. And maybe that, based on your particular situation, needs to be half and half into each one. So it's not looking at your specific lifestyle, your specific goals, and your specific values. So to kind of get a personalized, customizable, something that's going to work for you set up, let's look at this first. Gather your data. your bank statements, your credit cards, cash flow. If you use cash a lot, log your cash. We want to see where every dollar is going. And you want to do this. I'd like to see 3 months of statements and cash flow before really making a decision on that, because a lot of things can fluctuate, especially with like electricity in the summer. And spending for food during the holidays. And so you want to have something that kind of levels those peaks out a bit to really give us a better idea. And we're going to end up organizing those expenses into 2 separate categories. We're not going to split them into food, clothing, shelter, entertainment yet. We're going to just do 2 separate categories. And we're going to list those as non-discretionary and discretionary. Now, your non-discretionary expenses are things that you really need, like food, clothing, shelter, taxes, medication. And your discretionary expenses are things that you can live without. Let's think Netflix, maybe Amazon Prime, your cell phone. I know a lot of people don't think they can live without that, and you may need that for your particular situation. And we're going to categorize those based on importance, but that would be a discretionary expense. Now, with those discretionary expenses, we're going to categorize them or kind of rank them. What are you willing to live without? Are there some things on there that you're just like, why do we even still pay for this? Those get rid of, knock them off your list. But for the other ones, rank them as to their importance for you. You can do this a couple of different ways. One way, you can just go down the list, 1 through however many items you have. Some often will do like the top 3 that they really can't live without, and then the next 3, and then the next 3, and just kind of do that. And however, whatever ranking system you use, just know that you're valuing those. And that's what we're really doing. We're looking at the psychology of money and what you actually value most. And this is where you really have to be really honest with yourself and recognize your needs. How, is it more important that you have a new car more frequently? Or maybe you can use that, drive the paid off car for a while longer and have better family experiences. Maybe you can go on a few more vacations instead of driving a newer car. Are your expenses based on convenience? I mean, let's face it, we can have someone mow the yard and clean the pool and do our shopping and do those other things for us, or even the different, software programs or streaming devices we have. Do we need all of these things? Or are we paying for the conveniences and kind of not providing the options for ourselves that we may want? Like, instead of having, Netflix and Hulu and Disney Plus and Amazon Prime, instead of having all of those, and maybe I'm subscribing to like Showtime and HBO and some other channels as well, is it more important that I have the convenience of entertainment of all of these different options? Or would it be, or should it be more important that I pay off debt and I have the ability to retire earlier? So we really are breaking it down to, if we're spending more now, we're possibly having to work longer. And by spending less now, we're not required to work as much. And we may want to continue to work until we're 70 or 80, but we'll have the option and we won't be placed into a situation where we have to do it. And it's just important to realize that having one item requires you to usually sacrifice another. Even if you are Bill Gates and you have the ability to buy pretty much anything you want, you can't buy everything. And so you're sacrificing certain things. So just value those types of items that you're really, you're spending your money on. Put it into action. Once we determine your spending, your discretionary and non-discretionary expenses, put those things into action. And there's a couple different ways we can do that. Old school pen and paper, write the stuff down. Writing actually triggers some certain areas in your brain that makes it more memorable. The problem is if you lose, say that you have a spiral notebook and you're writing all of this stuff down to track it. If you lose it, well, you're kind of lost. oftentimes when you write down stuff, if you're using pen and paper or notebook or whatever, you're not capturing all of your expenses. Expenses often go overlooked, and particularly with cash. If you don't save a receipt or you don't get a receipt, then those expenses aren't put into the book. You may think, well, I know I had $20 in here, and you may have used that to buy Girl Scout cookies, but you don't have that logged anywhere. So you're missing these, you're not really being able to track everything that you need to. Having an envelope system is a really great overview way of looking at things. It may also help you kind of categorize like this expense, like I can spend this much on entertainment or this much on groceries. But the problem with the envelope system is you're not really definitively tracking that information. And so if you have more of a basic budgeting type of system, should I say, a basic budgeting need, that may be really easy for you. But if you're wanting to do something more advanced and really create some spending strategies, some saving strategies, the envelope system may not be the best way to go because it's not breaking down the expenses. You may be able to incorporate that in addition, but the basic envelope system doesn't really do that. It's easy to see like how much you have left in that category. You're not having to pull up an app or a spreadsheet or look in your notebook because you just look in the envelope. One of the issues with that is, and I have seen this happen, if you lose that envelope, you've lost your money. Whereas with a debit card or credit card, if you lose that, you can shut those off pretty quickly. Now, kind of a workaround with this is you may be able to get like a prepaid card and then just reload that with that particular dollar amount each month and use that as long as you're able to cancel and get that reissued. It might be a workaround for the envelope system to kind of keep you on track, and you can, write on the back of them, this is for groceries, this is for entertainment. We can do spreadsheets. I'm a spreadsheet nerd, and I like to do my expenses on spreadsheets because it makes it sortable and it's easily updated. I can access it from the cloud. However, it's a little bit more manual entry. So if you're not kind of into that, if you want to simplify things a little bit more, this may not be the route you want to use. Also, it's hard to pull up like on the go on your phone because, I can access it from the cloud, but the boxes are very, very small. And so you're really having to scroll through a lot, and there's possibility for error on when you're typing something in, or if it sorted it right, or if it added it right, or calculated it properly. Now, one of the most popular things that we see are the budgeting apps. And this is because it allows for account aggregation. So let's say you have accounts at 3 different banks. You may have, a car loan at one, a credit card at one, your checking and savings at another. You may also have a 401k account, maybe an investment account somewhere else, a Roth, an IRA. This pulls, instead of having to go log in to do each separate thing, whether it's, to track the expenses or to see what earnings that you have, an account aggregation system allows you to have one login. You enter all of your other logins into this software program, and then you'll have one login and get basically a summary of everything. Now, this makes it really easy to track expenses. If you use 1 or 2 cards, and this is really easy for joint expenses. So if you have a spouse or a couple where you may both be using the same card, one may not bring home the receipts all the time or not get receipts, whereas the other, will be a little bit frustrated not having that information. This will track it for you. It pulls in all of those expenses from whatever cards you list, from whatever logins you list, and it'll categorize them for you. So this is really easy to use. There's a lot of other features that it has. It can track your historical spending trends. It may help suggest payoff strategies for your debt. It will, some of them send you warnings if you're getting close to overspending, and they're easily accessible. Most of them have apps. If they don't have an app, I know we use one through Money Guide that's really customizable. It doesn't necessarily have an app, but you just like hold it and add it to your home screen. So it's a shortcut for an app. The only thing that and most of these have the issue with is the customizability. Most of them now have a bit more customizable features, whereas some of them are still kind of lagging. So you may have, for instance, when I have an area for pets, and then I break it down and do, like, whenever I do pet treats and vet bills, and I have like a puppy day spa listed, I can add those subcategories under that, basically pet section, whereas some of them won't let you do that. And so it takes a little bit of work in the beginning to to set up all those custom categories. But once they're in place and it kind of learns it's based on AI technology. Then what happens is whenever I go, to Petco to do dog grooming, then it automatically dumps it into that particular category for me. And you can set rules for those, you can adjust them, and it's really easy to do. So creating the categories and spending limits is probably what's going to take maybe the most time. But once you have what is, like the data that you're needing to create these things, it's going to be quite easy. Like I said, I have one of my categories is pets, and then I have subcategories under that. Do I need to track how much I'm doing on dog grooming and how much I'm doing in dog treats or dog food or vet bills? Probably not. I don't necessarily have to do that, but it may be something that, I want to do if I know that, am I spending too much on treats? Or, if I'm looking at maybe changing dog groomers or something, do they have a better deal? So it helps me kind of group those things together. A lot of people will use these categories for like entertainment. We had someone that did entertainment, and they did it for the family. So for instance, one of the kids had a card, and it would go under, that particular individual spending. And so they could see who's doing what. And this is particularly helpful if you're trying to, if you have one of the children involved in maybe an extracurricular, and so they have, like, say, traveling soccer, and you're wanting to then make sure that you're equally providing for the other child. You're not in this sport, but they are. So we can kind of compare the expenses and make sure that they're both, it's equitable for both of them. And so that's another reason you may want to create subcategories. It's important to track the progress weekly and review it monthly. I mean, with any well laid out plan, it's important to make sure it's actually doing what it should be doing and to make adjustments as needed. It's easier to make minor adjustments when you see things veering off versus letting it wait for a much longer period of time where you really have to pull the wheel back on that. Some tips and tricks to save money. I can't recommend enough to create a meal plan. You can find things online. This is a really neat tool that it's called Flip, F-L-I-P-P, and you can type in the zip code and see all of the local ads around you. And in the search bar, I can search for things on sale. Like if I'm looking for chicken, I can type in chicken and it'll show me everywhere that has chicken on sale. And so I can plan around what's on sale. I had a client come in and they were saying, yes, we found chicken on sale, but I don't want to eat chicken every single day of the week just because it's on sale. And I said, you don't have to. It gives you some options. Yeah, eat chicken a couple nights a week. But then if you do this when hamburgers on sale or ground beef's on sale or, cube steaks on sale, you have the ability to freeze some of that stuff. You have a freezer, freeze it. And that way you can rotate those things out. So no, you don't have to eat chicken and find 7 recipes for chicken for the week. You can kind of shuffle those in. And the more you do this, the easier it gets and the less trips you go to the store. Because let's face it, every time you walk into Walmart or United or any other grocery store, oftentimes you have basket jumpers. And those are things that are on the shelf that accidentally jump in the basket. You had nothing to do with it, and you end up spending more. And even if you're doing the pickup programs where you can just, order online, pick up, drive up, pick up type of thing, they usually have a limit. So let's say it's a $35 limit. You tend to, start dumping things in the basket that you really don't need. And so meal plan with this, get what you need for the week or 2 weeks or however you want to plan that out and work around what you have. Another tip is to delete saved credit card information from shopping sites. I had not thought of this, and I felt like a big old dodo for not thinking of it, because I am so bad at this. I have my card on file, with my Amazon account, and it's so easy to, as soon as you think of something, just run in and purchase it real quick because it's just a couple clicks. However, if I don't save that information in the site, it's going to require me to get up, get the card number, get the 3-digit code. And by the time I do that, I may not really still want that item. And oftentimes I will notice that as I go back like a month or so later to that shopping site, and I'll see something in my shopping cart. And I'm thinking, what? I don't need this now. I don't, this was like so yesterday, last season. And so I don't necessarily need that, which means that I probably didn't need it in the first place. So deleting that credit card information from the sites is a wonderful idea. Another tip is to maybe give yourself a cooling off period before making the purchase. I read a blog that said, what we do is if it's $100 or more, we make ourselves wait a week. If it's $100 or less, we kind of give ourselves a couple of days. And the reason that this works is, if we're not talking about if you need medication or a medical visit or something, but if you're looking at, let's say, a duvet or some household item like a blender, you may not need it that much. It may be a purchase that you want for the house, and it may be on sale, but wait a couple days and see how it plays out. Another tip is to set realistic goals. Be smart about it. Specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. And this is often where we see the pitfalls, because you get so gung-ho and you're wanting to pay off this debt, and you're like, I'm going to pay off all of this debt like in 3 months, and we're going to live off $20 worth of food for the whole month. We can do this. Let's go, team. That's not going to be attainable. It may be for a very short period of time, kind of like training for a marathon. You may be able to do all that at one time and accomplish that goal, but this is definitely not something that's going to last long term. And it is important that we do kind of create these programs and these processes in our head that are going to last long term, because let's face it, we're dealing with money for the rest of our lives. We need something that's going to work, not just for a month or 2 months or a year, but something long term. Because as we get into this habit, then it makes it so much easier. It becomes a lifestyle change. So we're not putting in a lot of effort or a lot of work to make these things happen. It just kind of is falling into place for us. Setting these specific goals is a big thing. Let's say that you have credit card debt, and let's say that it's on 3 different cards. It might be a better idea, instead of saying we're going to tackle all of this debt in 3 months, to then say, why don't we tackle this one credit card? And we're going to do it in, 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, and set that time base. So giving yourself not just the time-based goal, but making it more specific instead of just this giant mountain of stuff, really it kind of keeps you going, because it gets you to that specific milestone and gives you that sense of accomplishment. Whereas having to climb the entire mountain at once in one setting is really going to be a little bit unattainable. It's not easy. Let's face it. Some of this stuff, we have people that are dealing with it all the time. People have trouble with it all the time. That's why there are so many suggestions and websites and apps and ideas and all of these, like this webinar. That's why there's so many out there, because it doesn't necessarily, people have trouble all the time. And what's out there we're trying to fit our our particular situation into something that's pre-designed and it's not working for us. So it's important that we, just take a different outlook on it. Let's create something that's specific for us, that's going to work for us, and then celebrate those milestones. When you do hit that, whatever milestone it is, go out for dinner, order pizza, rent a movie on Netflix, and reward yourself for that.